The Louisiana Purchase Exposition, held in St. Louis in 1904, was a dazzling spectacle of progress and innovation. It aimed to showcase America's achievements on the world stage. However, this grand celebration was marred by a dark undercurrent. The Jim Crow era, with its system of racial segregation and discrimination, cast a long shadow over the event. The exposition became a stark reminder of the deep racial divisions that plagued the nation. Jim Crow laws, enacted throughout the southern and some northern states, relegated African Americans to second-class citizenship. These laws mandated segregation in public spaces, including schools, hospitals, and transportation. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition, despite its claims of progress and unity, was no exception. The fairgrounds themselves reflected this segregated reality. African Americans were relegated to separate and often inferior facilities. They were denied access to many of the exhibits, restaurants, and amenities enjoyed by white attendees. The very layout of the exposition served as a visual representation of the racial hierarchy that defined the era.
The exclusionary practices of the Jim Crow era extended beyond physical segregation. They also silenced the voices and perspectives of Black leaders and intellectuals who challenged the prevailing racial order. Notable figures like Webb Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, leading voices in the fight for racial equality, were conspicuously absent from the exposition's official program. Du Bois, a staunch advocate for civil rights and racial justice, criticized the exposition for its failure to address the plight of Black Americans. He saw the event as a missed opportunity for honest dialogue and meaningful progress. Washington, while adopting a more conciliatory approach, also expressed concerns about the exposition's reinforcement of racial divisions. The absence of these prominent figures from the exposition's platform spoke volumes. It revealed a deliberate attempt to silence dissenting voices and present a sanitized version of American society. The exclusion of Black perspectives from the narrative of progress and achievement served to further marginalize African Americans and perpetuate harmful stereotypes.
The Louisiana Purchase Exposition, like many World's Fairs of the time, utilized exhibits to present a particular narrative about race and culture. However, these exhibits often relied on harmful stereotypes and distortions, reinforcing prevailing prejudices against people of color, particularly African Americans and Native Americans. Exhibits showcasing African American life frequently depicted Black people in subservient roles or engaged in stereotypical activities. These portrayals served to reinforce the notion of Black inferiority and justify the continuation of Jim Crow segregation. Similarly, exhibits featuring Native Americans often presented them as primitive and uncivilized, further marginalizing and dehumanizing indigenous peoples. These distorted representations had a lasting impact on public perceptions. They contributed to a culture of prejudice and discrimination that continued long after the exposition's closing day. The fair, intended to be a celebration of progress, instead became a vehicle for reinforcing harmful stereotypes and perpetuating racial hierarchies.
The Louisiana Purchase Exposition featured human zoos. These exhibits displayed people as objects of curiosity and entertainment. Indigenous cultures from Africa, Asia, and the Philippines were displayed in mock villages. These zoos stripped individuals of their dignity. They reinforced racist ideologies, presenting them as primitive. Visitors were encouraged to gawk and marvel. These zoos represented the darkest aspects of colonialism. They remind us of the dangers of unchecked prejudice.
Section 5, Unequal Harvest, Economic Disparity and Exploitation. While the Louisiana Purchase Exposition brought economic prosperity to St. Louis, the benefits were not shared equally. The event's grandeur masked a system of labor exploitation that disproportionately impacted African Americans and other marginalized groups. African Americans, largely excluded from skilled labor positions, were relegated to menial jobs with low wages and poor working conditions. They faced discrimination in housing and access to essential services, further exacerbating economic disparities. The exposition, while showcasing the nation's industrial might, also exposed the deep economic inequalities that plagued American society. The exploitation of labor at the exposition was not limited to African Americans. Immigrant workers drawn to the event by the promise of opportunity often faced harsh working conditions and unfair treatment. The pursuit of profit often overshadowed concerns for worker welfare, highlighting the ethical dilemmas inherent in large-scale events of this nature.
Hadley. Section 6. A single story. Erasure and cultural dominance. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition presented a limited and Eurocentric view of the world. It privileged Western narratives, often at the expense of other cultures. The dominant narrative reinforced a hierarchy of civilizations, with Western culture at the apex. The architecture reflected this Eurocentric bias. Grand buildings, inspired by Greek and Roman designs, dominated the fairgrounds. Non-Western cultures were often sidelined, presented as exotic curiosities. This erasure of cultural diversity had a lasting impact.
Section 7. A History Untold. Historical Amnesia and Misrepresentation. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition coincided with a period of intense historical revisionism in the United States. The Lost Cause mythology, which romanticized the Confederacy and minimized the horrors of slavery, was gaining traction. This distorted version of history found its way into the exposition, shaping public perceptions and influencing historical narratives for generations to come. Exhibits and presentations often glossed over the injustices of slavery and its lasting legacy. The role of African Americans in shaping American history was minimized, and their contributions to society were often overlooked. The exposition, rather than serving as a forum for honest historical reflection, became a platform for perpetuating a sanitized and inaccurate version of the past. This historical amnesia had profound consequences. It allowed for the continuation of systemic racism and discrimination by denying the historical context that shaped these inequalities. The exposition, through its selective presentation of history, contributed to a culture of denial and obfuscation that continues to impact our understanding of the past.
Section 8. Expansion and Exploitation. The Exposition in the Age of Imperialism. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition took place during a period of intense American imperialism. The United States, newly emerged as a global power, was actively expanding its influence abroad, often through military intervention and economic domination. The exposition, while ostensibly a celebration of progress, also served to legitimize and promote American imperial ambitions. Exhibits showcasing American industrial and military might reinforced the nation's growing power on the world stage. The presence of human zoos featuring people from colonized territories further normalized the idea of Western dominance and justified the exploitation of resources and labor in other parts of the world. The exposition's celebration of American progress and ingenuity was inextricably linked to the nation's imperial ambitions. It presented a narrative of American exceptionalism that justified expansion and intervention in the affairs of other nations. The event served as a powerful propaganda tool, promoting a particular vision of American power and influence in the world.
Section 9. A Legacy of Inequality. The Enduring Impact. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition, despite its grandeur and ambition, left behind a complex and troubling legacy. The event's celebration of progress was marred by its reinforcement of racial hierarchies, its erasure of cultural diversity, and its contribution to historical misrepresentation. The exposition serves as a reminder that progress is not always linear, and that even moments of great achievement can be tainted by injustice and inequality. The issues of racial inequality, cultural erasure, and historical amnesia that plagued the exposition continue to resonate in contemporary society. The struggle for racial justice, the fight against cultural appropriation, and the ongoing efforts to reclaim and retell marginalized histories are all rooted in the legacies of the past. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of critical engagement with history. By confronting the uncomfortable truths of the past, we can better understand the present and work towards a more just and equitable future.